It's the Custard TV podcast.
That sounds like that was really difficult. It sounded like you were tossing a stone in the air.
I think answers on a postcard if you knew what theme tune Gary was doing there. It should be like, do you remember, did either of you used to buy Empire magazine and they used to have the quotes on the spines?
Oh,
I think that should be like that Gary doing the It's. What was the theme tune this week?
I genuinely want them on a postcard as well.
Indeed.
I won't accept them via email.
Or the back of an envelope.
Which you have licked yourself.
Yes.
Luke, Gary and Matt. Talking telly on the Custard TV podcast.
Right, it is the Custard TV podcast. You may not have gathered that by that bizarre opening. Speaking of a bizarre opening, Gary's in the London area.
Hi.
And Matt's in the north.
Hi. You know that that was a sort of good link there, because I just realised we actually broke some exclusive news on the podcast, and you know what it was?
What was that?
No?
It was Steve Jones hosting Sexbox, because Gary mentioned it before Channel 4 released the press release.
But I like the idea that if I edit this correctly, I can just make it sound like you said Gary broke Sexbox. Now, before we do all the TV stuff, I've been pre-warned. We have some massive McNamara news.
Oh yeah.
Now, for those of you,
go on.
For those of you who aren't sure what we're on about, Mrs. McNamara is Gary's non-Asian neighbour.
Scottish, I believe, isn't she?
Yeah. She's Scottish. She's called Irene.
I don't know.
How old is Mrs. McNamara roughly?
She's got to be late 70s, early 80s. I would have thought.
That's how old I pitched her.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I don't like the fact that you're picturing her. That's unsettling.
Well, no, I have to do something to get myself off at night.
Oh, that's fair enough. Mrs. McNamara news is that I found out through a neighbour. I have not had confirmation from the horse's mouth, not calling her a horse, that she's moving away.
No!
This can't happen.
Going to go and live with her eldest daughter.
She's not going to go to the big apartment in the sky?
No. She's not going to the place where grandmas go when they've need...
Florida.
Yeah, Florida. No, she's going to go and live with her eldest daughter in Yorkshire. So she's coming up north. So, is that near you, Matt?
Where's that?
I don't know, somewhere in Yorkshire.
That sounded so wrong.
No.
Somewhere in Yorkshire.
Coming up north.
I'll get you a postcode or something.
I'm more Midlands than north.
That's gonna, be a shadow across this episode,
Well, it's going to be kind of like the end of an era for this podcast, because we've been, sort of talking about her now for 3 years, really, almost.
And also, I'm annoyed she didn't tell you and you had to find out through a neighbour.
Well, I haven't seen her for a while, because I mentioned that over the winter months, she does often tend to go and live with her daughter.
Hibernate.
Not to be on her own, so she's been there for a while, and my neighbour told me that apparently when she comes back, she's going to sell up and move. So,
how much do you reckon she'll get for her place?
I wouldn't like to say. I've not been inside, so I can't give you some sort
Luke,
of,
me and you move in?
Yeah, I'm just thinking, Gary could do sort of a podcast version of Homes Under the Hammer, is what I'm thinking.
Literally take a hammer to the home, no?
What I like the idea of, though, now, is that Gary could, he could let us know about people looking round Mrs. McNamara's house.
That's true, yeah, I could sort of, get to know the new people, and they could be the new Mrs. McNamara.
I hope they're old.
Well,
although when they're old, they move away, so I don't know what I want.
I'm told that there are some adjustments to the house for her, so it is suitable for the elderly person.
Sounds suitable for you as well.
I'm not trying to sort of, I'm not that old. I'm not trying to sort of get in on the agent's fees there, but apparently that's how you would market the house, I'm told.
Matt, you're still looking for a place?
Yes.
Be handy for screenings, wouldn't it?
Be a bit of a harsh commute, though, to work in the mornings.
Well, no, what you could do is you could, stay where you are now, and then just, when you come down to London, when you're not selling stamps.
Holiday home.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could have a holiday home.
On
more mail.
You wouldn't need to worry about putting your headphones in or worry about it. You just come round and use the Wi-Fi here.
Will you keep us updated, though? Because seriously, I think
follow me
Matt
on Twitter.
Moving in.
Follow me on Twitter at The Gary Show, and I'll make
I really should do that at some point. I really should follow you.
Yeah, you should.
It just makes it awkward. I never know what your Twitter name is.
Yeah.
Okay, bit of news for you. Bit of some hosting news first. Dara O'Brien is among 2 hosts confirmed for the reboot of Robot Wars. No real surprises there. But a massive surprise, which nobody today saw coming, is that Matt LeBlanc of Friends and Episodes fame is to co-host with Chris Evans the upcoming reboot of Top Gear. This is a very, very smart decision, as the BBC need to sort of sell this across the world, and Chris Evans isn't a massive draw. Not that originally, of course, Jeremy Clarkson, Hammond and May were, but it was just the amazing chemistry they had and what they did on the show that worked. But this is a very smart move, and actually I think it shows that they've been kind of putting the wool over our eyes with all these, is Alex Jones going to do it, is somebody else going to do it, when really they've lined up some big names.
The people I heard them rumouring were like, motoring journalists and people in the...
Well, wasn't Jodie Kidd or Gemma Kidd, one of those two mentioned at
One of the kids.
One of the kids. And who knows, it could be Clarkson under the Stig helmet, and we just don't know it. Netflix has announced that it will renew House of Cards for a 5th season. Has now gone much beyond the British version. It's now into its own territory, so they're not taking storylines from the BBC version.
I'm a bit worried Netflix is becoming another... Well, what we do nowadays is just recommission everything. I mean, they can afford it. They can
afford it, and there's only 10 or 11. There's not 24 of this. So
yeah, it doesn't mean there should be it just because it's a hit.
Well, as long as the stars are prepared to do it, and the scripts are there, and the money's there, I don't see why they shouldn't be like this. But I know what you're thinking. But the show is still pretty strong.
You know what I'd love?
What would you love?
Matt is always so quiet during Gary Goes West. I'd love to know what he's... I imagine he's knitting.
Listening intently.
Is he just knitting or something?
I'm listening.
I thought you'd be knitting or, stroking a small cat while listening.
I wonder where you were going with that sentence.
And the reviews this week, funnily enough, I'm not doing the reviews. Shock horror.
Yeah.
People will enjoy this.
People will. After last week's Gary heavy episode, you're getting less of me. First of all, the new series of The Good Wife, series 7, started last week on More 4.
I like how even when he knows the correct information, it never quite...
He's just being polite, Luke.
Just being polite.
Tentative, because I know if I do it with any sort of authority and get it wrong, you slap me down.
But I enjoy that.
Yeah, I do.
I like the fact that I make you feel red raw by the end of the podcast experience.
Is this a late night version of the episode podcast? What is going on here? You've been feeling a bit frisky, Luke. Do you need to go out for a run?
Yeah. I think you're mixing it up with a dog.
Tell us about The Good Wife and how the first episode.
What, just the entire plot up to this point?
Yeah, well, no,
just 6 series up to now.
We've got time, Luke. You shush, come on.
Well, The Good Wife started with Juliana Margulies as the wife.
Are you really going to do
He's
the
doing
whole
it.
thing?
He's going to do it.
Well, no, I was just giving a bit of context. Basically,
Okay,
her character was a wife of a governor, and he got found out for doing dodgy things and sent to jail, and she had to become a lawyer for her children. And then over the 6 seasons we've had so far, she started her own firm. The last season saw her run for office and win, and then it turned out that there was some scandal behind the scenes and she was forced to resign, and now this series has started with her. She's working on her own from her house with her daughter. The Michael J. Fox character, who is a recurring character, Lewis, keeps popping up and says he wants to sort of partner with her, but she's not having any of it because, in her own words, he's the devil. And she starts at appearing at bail court, or bond court it's called.
Is that similar to what Better Call Saul does? Is that in the first?
I think so, yeah. I think
sort
so.
of like
they get loads of cases and they have to just basically wind them through the court as quickly as possible. Isn't it? Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, she starts there and she has a tough time starting, and at the same time she gets another case. But she becomes friendly with a character played by Cush Jumbo, who appeared in her last episode of Vera this week. Interesting, dying Vera, end up in The Good Wife, as you do.
It's kind of the opposite of what's happened to Archie Punjabi, isn't it?
Yeah.
Start in The Good Wife, possibly die in Shetland.
Yes. Sort of bad cultural exchange.
Now, I like that they're trying to do a new relationship between them like they did with her and Kalinda. The best stuff, though, came in the sort of political aspect of it with her husband, Peter. who's now running for vice president, and Alan Cumming, who's brilliant as Eli, his aide, is desperate to get Margot Martindale's character, Ruth Eastman, to sort of advise on the campaign, but it sort of backfires on him, and he ends up being replaced by her, and then at the end he becomes Alicia's chief of staff. So you're going to get the banter between Alan Cumming and Margot Martindale in each episode, which will be good. The only thing I would say about this series so far is that I think the sort of Lockhart Gardner characters are getting sort of pushed. So like Carrie and Diane are almost sort of getting pushed to the side. They're having to come up with reasons for them to appear more and more.
Mm.
And also, I suppose they're all. I think the one problem that program, and it's not a massive problem at all, but you'd be kicking yourself if you named it The Good Wife, and then it's been on 7 years, and it's not really about, her being a good wife anymore.
No.
I mean, it never really was after series 1.
It's sort of an ironic title, I suppose, isn't it?
We've discussed that. I mean, like the Prison Break.
But she's still appearing before the cameras as his wife, even though they're not living together anymore. They still appear as a couple on the screen to promote him, to promote his campaign and stuff like that. In the public image, she is still the good wife, I suppose. That's what they're going for, she's the good wife to the politician.
And the other one that Luke and Matt have seen a preview of is the show that's going to be coming to BBC Two later this month, based on the true life of trial of OJ Simpson, called American Crime Story. Luke, take us through this one. You've seen an advance copy.
Well, it is about the trial that everybody might know, but it's also about the lead up to it and it's about day one of Nicole Brown Simpson being found dead.
It starts with the death, the day of the murder.
And you've got little reference. Everybody is portrayed here. You've got Cuba Gooding Jr. as OJ himself. You've got David Schwimmer as Robert Kardashian. You've got John Travolta as the creepiest man in the world.
Oh, Shapiro, was it?
Robert Shapiro.
But I had a strange relationship with it. Such a strange relationship with it. At the beginning, I was like, yeah, this is really good. I'll get Matt to watch this. Rang him. He was waiting for a bus. True story, not going to lie to you. Oh, even more exciting. And I said, could you watch this? I think it's worth discussing before it's on. And then I continued.
Me when I was on the bus this morning as well.
It's exciting, isn't it?
No.
It's incredible what the modern world can provide us with. And then when I turned it back on, John Travolta turned up, and it went a bit daft.
Because it starts with the sort of the discovery of the bodies and what have you, and ends with him running off and going on the sort of car chase that we all.
And then I thought David Schwimmer, who I hadn't really seen outside of Friends, really wasn't that good.
No, I was just like, it's Ross.
Yeah,
with a bit of grey hair.
And I know you shouldn't think like that, but I couldn't help thinking, it's
the stuff
Ross,
to me that didn't work was all the stuff like with Johnny Cochran, which sort of ran differently from the rest of the story, and it was just like, remember this man? He'll be with OJ later on.
I of the age, and I was Luke confirmed, but I don't know, Matt, if you do you remember? Were you watching this on Sky News?
I don't know. I remember bits and bobs of it, because we would have been, 9 at the time, Luke?
Well, 10? That's the thing. I was a little...
No, was it 94?
It was...
94, so 11.
94, yeah.
Actually, 10, I was right, because it's June 12th.
Well, I was 20, so I was hooked. I think this is the only reason I actually had Sky News in those days. I know I had Sky, but Sky News, they showed the trial every night. I think they had a whole programme.
Can we just clarify? The reason you had Sky News is because you had Sky.
Well, yeah, but I don't think I'd ever watched Sky News.
This is the reason you watch Sky News.
Yeah, but I don't think I'd even knew it was there until... news channels.
That doesn't surprise me. Yeah, doesn't surprise me.
It was shown every night, and they did like a whole sort of in-depth thing. So they showed the case, the court, and then they would sit and talk about it as well. They had like talking head people talking about the case, and I seem to remember them saying that Johnny Cochran was like their surprise weapon. Like he'd come in later.
I wonder if I
don't deliver the good stuff, and he did. The whole you must acquit. He does not fit.
Can we see if we're going to do a game of match here? Because what I really liked was Sarah Paulson as Marsha Clark.
Yes, a game of match indeed. Yeah. There you go.
Because I think when she was on, I was like, this is really good. I like this. And then it would cut to a scene with John Travolta, and I'd think, this is silly. I don't like this.
I'll tell you